A work session can look busy for 3 hours and still leave nothing you can inspect, improve, or ship. That is the tension for solo operators. The calendar says work happened, but the output is hidden inside tabs, notes, and half decisions. If that pattern continues, deadlines become negotiations with your own fatigue, and quality depends on whether the day stayed quiet. The intentional output framework turns each session into a small operating contract. It asks one recurring diagnostic question: what proof will exist at the end of this block? The practical result is not a prettier schedule. It is a visible artifact, a quality gate, and a learning note that changes the next similar session. The unresolved decision is simple but consequential. Are you about to work? Or are you about to produce something that can be checked? Distraction is often treated as the cause, but for many solo operators it is a symptom. The cause is that the session has no inspection point. When the brain cannot tell what finish looks like, it keeps accepting nearby substitutes, answering a message, polishing a file name, rereading old notes, opening another reference. Common fixes fail when they only protect time. A blocked hour is still porous if it contains 5 possible outcomes and no proof standard. What you lose is not only minutes. You lose comparability between sessions. You cannot tell whether the problem was scope, missing input, interruption, or quality anxiety. Without that distinction, every missed deadline feels personal, when it may be an operating design failure. The intentional output framework works through a concrete artifact called the output intent card. The card has 5 visible parts: the proof object, the constraint rail, the quality gate, the interruption pin, and the calibration mark. The proof object is what must exist when the block ends. The constraint rail names the limit that keeps the work small, such as time, source material, or word count. The quality gate is the pass condition. The interruption pin holds anything that tries to pull you away. The calibration mark records what changed for next time. This framework applies to solo output blocks: writing, editing, designing, building, preparing analysis, or creating client material. It does not solve unclear strategy, weak demand, or emergencies. It controls a narrower decision. Given this chosen work, what visible result will this session produce? The first rule is one block, one proof. No output block starts until you can name the visible proof that will exist at the end. A proof is not an intention like make progress. It is a draft opening, a cleaned sequence, a decision table, a proposal outline, a tested component, or another object a future version of you can inspect. The default threshold is practical. If the proof cannot be inspected in under 90 seconds, shrink it. This works because inspection creates a finish line without requiring the whole project to be finished. Use it when a block is meant to produce. Do not use it for open exploration, rest, relationship work, or genuine discovery. It fails when you disguise research as output. The decision changes from "what should I work on" to "what proof can this block honestly create?" A focused work block is not a fortress against the world. It is a rail that prevents the proof from expanding. Choose one constraint before the block starts: a 45-minute limit, 3 source documents, 1 design direction, 1 section, or 1 client question. The trade-off is deliberate. A tighter rail may leave useful ideas outside the block, but it protects the proof from becoming a second project. The rule works because constraint reduces the number of decisions you must remake while tired. It fails when the chosen constraint protects comfort instead of output, such as limiting the block to easy sources while avoiding the hard decision. At the midpoint, run the self-audit. Is the current action creating the promised proof, protecting the constraint, or avoiding the quality gate? If none apply, shrink the proof before continuing. A solo creator has 2 hours to prepare a short educational piece from a longer recording. The usual pattern is to browse all footage, chase better angles, and end with a prettier mess. The output intent card changes the decision. The proof object becomes a rough 3-minute sequence with a clear opening, one example, and a closing line. The constraint rail is only the marked clips already selected. The quality gate is simple. The sequence must make sense without extra explanation. The action is to assemble that useful cut before touching color, music, or thumbnails. The trade-off is that some potentially strong moments remain unused. The inspectable output is a playable rough cut, not an edited dream. The calibration mark notes that next time, selecting clips before the block saves more energy than editing from the full recording. Quality and quantity become confusing when the gate is invisible. The framework separates a quality gate from a quality fantasy. A gate is an inspectable pass condition, the argument is coherent, the numbers reconcile, the image hierarchy is clear. The client can choose between two options. A fantasy is endless refinement without a stop condition. The rule is to define the gate before the block, then stop the block when the proof reaches it or fails it. This works because it makes quality a decision standard instead of a mood. It fails when the gate is too vague, such as make it excellent, or too strict for the block, such as final polish during first assembly. The decision changes from producing more or perfecting forever to choosing the smallest proof that deserves the next investment. A consultant is preparing recommendations for a client workshop. The context is imperfect. The client sends late survey notes, the calendar has a hard afternoon deadline, and the original plan was a full slide deck. The card forces a different decision. The proof object becomes a one-page decision map showing 3 recommendation paths. The constraint rail is the confirmed data only. The gate is whether a client can choose what to discuss first. Halfway through, a message arrives with new comments. The consultant parks it in the interruption pen instead of rebuilding the map. The first attempt still fails the gate because one path depends on missing budget detail. The calibration mark records the gap as input, not effort. Next, similar block starts by requesting budget ranges before drafting. The trade-off is a narrower deliverable, but the output is usable for the workshop instead of an unfinished deck. The framework breaks in 3 predictable ways. First, the proof is too large. You notice this when the block becomes planning about the proof instead of making the proof. Respond by cutting the object in half, not by extending the block automatically. Second, the quality gate is ornamental. It sounds serious but cannot reject anything. Replace it with a pass condition a tired operator could still apply. Third, the interruption pen becomes a second task list. If parked items keep returning, the issue may be availability, not focus. Change the environment or the timing of the block. The framework also should not be used to force output from work that needs recovery, conversation, or strategic choice. Its strength is making production inspectable. Its weakness is that it cannot make the wrong work important. Return to the opening tension, a full session that leaves no evidence. The operating correction is to answer the diagnostic question before motion begins. What proof will exist at the end of this block? Keep 4 takeaways close. First, start with the proof object, not the task category. Second, choose one constraint rail that prevents the proof from expanding. Third, define a quality gate that can pass or reject the proof without a debate. Fourth, park interruptions without letting the parking area become the new project. Fifth, mark the gap after the block as scope, input, interruption, or quality, then change the next similar decision. That learning loop is what keeps the framework from becoming a ritual. The transformation is visible. Scattered effort becomes an inspectable artifact, a cleaner stop point, and a better designed next block.